A letter to Jeffrey Epstein that allegedly bears the signature of President Donald Trump, that's from the early 2000s, has been unearthed and has been released by Congress this week. The President Donald Trump denies that that signature is his. He denies having drawn the picture and the depiction of the curvaceous outline of the woman that also appears on this 50th birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein. And the president has a lot to say. He is suing the Wall Street Journal for defamation. And I think this news story does a great job of unearthing some of these facts and speaking about them. So I'm going to share that with you. It's really an interesting dynamic when you get into talking about defamation. And
as Democrats in the House Oversight have released a letter that President Trump denies he sent to Jeffrey Epstein. Is this here on Live Now from Fox of this from the Democrats, the House Oversight Committee saying, here it is. We got Trump's birthday note to Jeffrey Epstein that the president said doesn't exist. Trump talks about a wonderful secret the two of them shared. What is he hiding? Release the files. And you can see the letter there on the left and calling into question some of that, the signature. But of course, this is a revelation as the letter was included as part of a 50th birthday album compiled in the 2003 for Epstein, a wealthy, well-connected financier who was once a friend of Trump's. Epstein killed himself in a Manhattan jail while awaiting trial in 2019 on charges that he sexually abused, trafficked dozens of underage girls. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee received a copy of the birthday album on Monday as part of a batch of documents from Epstein's estate. In this letter, it says,
so this is actually pretty compelling, and it's pretty important because the allegations are that Donald Trump, who reportedly was friends with Jeffrey Epstein at a certain point in life, has sent him this card for his 50th birthday. And there were some references in there that are troublesome, references to sharing a wonderful secret together. And Jeffrey Epstein, as we know, was awaiting trial, and he was in prison and killed himself while he was awaiting trial for sex trafficking and a number of very heinous crimes. So this is very problematic for Donald Trump to be associated with this type of behavior. And he is denying it vehemently. He has sued the Wall Street Journal for having reported this and connecting him to this birthday card, which he says does not bear his signature. So as an attorney myself, it's always interesting to see these defamation type cases about news media stories. With defamation, the actor here, the Wall Street Journal, would have had to publish this with knowledge that it was not true. And it's really hairy when it comes to these defamation claims. It's very difficult because, technically speaking, Donald Trump particularly is a public figure. So defamation claims are particularly difficult to recover on if you are a public figure, such as Donald Trump. So let's go back to this news story. I want to share with you the additional information that this story has uncovered.
Quote, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. And I may even be another wonderful secret. So a live picture right there in Washington, D.C. at the White House. As Trump has said, he did not write the letter or create the drawing of the curvaceous woman that surrounds the letter, and he filed a $10 billion lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal for earlier reporting on his link to the letter. The letter bearing Trump's name and what appears to be his signature includes text framed around this drawing. The release of the drawing comes as the president has for months faced increasing pressure to force more disclosure in the case of Epstein and his former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. The letter's disclosure comes amid a bipartisan push in Congress for the release of the so-called Epstein files. Amid years of speculation and conspiracy theories, the Justice Department in August began turning over records from the Epstein sex trafficking investigation to the House Oversight Committee. We're also hearing there from the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, saying the latest piece published by the Wall Street Journal proves the entire, quote, birthday card story is false. As I have said all along,
So
it's
they're
very
talking
clear
about
President Trump did not draw this picture. He did not sign it.
their
President
position
Trump's
on
legal
why
team will continue to aggressively pursue litigation. Furthermore, the reporter who wrote this hatchet job reached out for comment at the exact same minute he published his story, giving us no time to respond. This is a fake news to perpetuate the Democratic Epstein hoax. So, of course, that coming in from the White House press secretary, and just going back to the original.
So again, we're hearing this allegation from Donald Trump's press secretary that this is fake news, that he certainly did not sign this 50th birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein. And this is really interesting because he's sued the Wall Street Journal for billions of dollars. And as I said, that is very difficult. Defamation claims are very difficult to recover on, especially as a public figure. So the Wall Street Journal has a First Amendment right to report on stories that are true. A truth is an absolute defense to a defamation claim. So it's very critical for Donald Trump to be able to prove that this is not his signature. And I love how certain videos that are populating on YouTube are going through the different signature comparisons. And they're talking about how Donald Trump's signature on this card had a long tail at the end. And they're comparing his signatures to other signatures that he has done. And now it certainly is possible, I'm sure, for someone to forge his signature, especially such a highly popularized, well-known signature as Donald Trump. But this card, remember, is back from the early 2000s. So this is not a recent, this is from 22 years ago, 20 plus years ago, where he allegedly signed this card and allegedly drew this curvaceous woman and was referencing, sharing a wonderful secret between him and Jeffrey Epstein. So this is a very interesting case to see how it unfolds. I'll be interested to follow Trump's defamation suit against the Wall Street Journal to see if that gets legs and how that progresses. Oftentimes, the media companies will try to get that out on at an early stage on motion to dismiss or motion for summary judgment. But let's go back to the story here.
Proposed from the House Democrats as they have released this photo on social media as Trump has denied sending this letter to Epstein. It is released by Congress today, so certainly some bombshell news and lots of questions going about the signature, about the drawing, about some of the words within this picture as well. All right, I'm Andy Mack here on Live Now from Fox. We're back after this.
So essentially, the president is saying, I absolutely did not do that.
Welcome, one and all, to the Late Show. I'm your host, Stephen Colbert.
Denying that was his signature. He's also denying having drawn that picture of the curvaceous woman that was depicted on this card. But, again, this is going to be a really interesting case to watch. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all unfolds. A lot of times in these cases, like I said, it's very difficult for a plaintiff in a defamation suit who is a public figure to recover. And, it's funny that this all comes down, all is reported on this day because today the U.S. Supreme Court had ruled that it will fast track its consideration of the government's appeal of a federal circuit ruling that President Trump's tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act are unlawful. So Donald Trump right now has his hands full, as usual, with the litigation that he is involved in. And there's going to be a lot of really interesting things to see. And we're all here for it and watching it on this channel.